What would you do if you had only 3 months left to live? Now imagine finding out that the child everyone said was dying might actually be your daughter, and she might live if you can uncover the truth in time. In a world ruled by power and profit, one dying billionaire risks everything to save a little girl, abandoned by everyone, including him. But nothing is what it seems, because the girl's illness was engineered, and the one who betrayed them both, his own sister. This isn't just a story of illness. It's about a legacy rewritten, a love rediscovered, and a race against death to expose a secret that could destroy a dynasty. The manila envelope on Julian Voss's desk was unassuming. No bold letters, no urgent red stamps. Yet it seemed to cast a shadow larger than the Manhattan skyline beyond his penthouse windows. He didn't open it immediately. He didn't need to. He already knew what was inside. Dr. Renner's face earlier that day had told him everything. Julian finally slit. The seal open with a letter opener that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The words on the paper blurred slightly as he read, "Rapid neurodegeneration, advanced stage tauopathy, prognosis 90 days or less." He poured himself a double of 25-year-old Glendronach and stared out over the glass jungle of the city he ruled, his empire of silent boardrooms and blinking servers. The scotch tasted like metal. 3 months, he whispered. His reflection in the window looked back like a stranger, silver hair still sharp, beard trimmed, eyes alert, but dulled by years of detachment. And now, finality. He had no wife, no children. His only sibling wanted him gone. The empire he built with brutal precision now felt like scaffolding around an empty building. What was the legacy of a man no one truly knew? Julian walked slowly through the quiet of his penthouse, each footstep echoing on polished marble floors. A photo near the fireplace caught his eye. Elaine, his late wife, smiling, wind in her auburn hair, taken during a rare vacation to Tuscany before the cancer had stolen her. He hadn't visited her grave in 7 years. Nearby, a dusty box of mementos he hadn't opened in decades sat untouched. Among them was a holiday card from Vivian, his sister. They hadn't spoken in 4 years, not since she accused him of emotionally sabotaging the family business during a heated board meeting. And now, she would get everything. He thumbed through a book of handwritten notes he'd once started on AI ethical reform, something Emery would one day inherit, but there was no Emery. The idea that his legacy would pass to boardroom vultures made Julian nauseous. His assistant buzzed through the intercom. "Sir, your car is waiting for the gala." Julian looked at his tuxedo draped on the bed and made a snap decision. "Tell Dean to take me the long way home." Rain spattered across the windshield as Julian leaned back in the leather interior of his sleek Bentley. The gala was a charade. He knew it. So did everyone attending. He gave to the Children's Hospital every year, but had never stepped foot inside it. Tonight, he almost didn't notice the wheelchair at the edge of the entrance. The child sitting there was tiny, wrapped in a thin blanket. A stuffed fox rested in her lap, one ear missing. A nurse glanced around impatiently by the door, distracted by her phone. "Stop the car," Julian said sharply. Dean looked confused, but obeyed. Julian stepped out, umbrella in hand, his shoes splashing lightly on the wet pavement. She didn't flinch when he approached. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked. The girl looked up. Her eyes were huge and green and startlingly calm. "No," she said softly. "Nobody comes back." He hesitated. "What's your name?" "Emery Wells. I'm 7. She pointed to a crumpled folder beside her. "I'm not supposed to live very long, but I'm not scared." Something in Julian cracked open. "Do you want to come with me?" he asked, before he could stop himself. "Just for tonight. I live nearby." She studied him carefully, then gave a slow, deliberate nod. The penthouse, usually as sterile as a museum, echoed with something foreign as Emery's wheelchair wheels squeaked across polished floors. Julian guided her into the sitting room. "This is home, for now." She tilted her head. "It's very clean, like no one lives here." Ms. Connors, the housekeeper, appeared, wide-eyed. Julian raised a hand. "She's a guest. Prepare the East guest suite." He watched Emery trace her fingers along the edge of a marble counter, her grip still tight on the stuffed fox. "Are you hungry?" Julian asked. She nodded. "Do you have soup?" Moments later, Emery sat at the kitchen island, slowly sipping vegetable broth, her legs dangling from the stool. She watched Julian carefully, as though measuring the architecture of his soul. "You look sad," she said bluntly. He blinked. "Why do you say that?" "Because your house has no smiles in it." That night, Julian found himself reading aloud from an old copy of The Little Prince. She fell asleep mid-chapter, her fox tucked under her chin. He sat beside her for a long time. Something unfamiliar coiled in his chest. The next morning, Julian's alarm went off, but he didn't rise to prepare for meetings. Instead, he found himself standing at Emery's door, watching her sleep in a bed far too big for her small frame. His phone rang. 3 missed calls from board members, one from Harold, his lawyer. He ignored them all. In the kitchen, Ms. Connors was already brewing coffee. She woke up once, asked if you were still here. "I'm here," Julian said quietly. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Dr. Isabel Garcia. "Mr. Voss?" Her voice came through with professional calm. "Emery Wells was not scheduled for discharge. I'd like to discuss her care plan with you directly. There are inconsistencies I'd like to address." "Inconsistencies," he repeated. "I'd prefer to speak in person. I can come to you." Julian looked at the trail of child-sized footprints still visible on the marble floor. "Tomorrow, noon." As he hung up, Emery entered the room, rubbing her eyes. "Do I have to go back to the hospital?" "Not today," Julian replied. "Good," she said, curling onto the couch. "Your house is quiet, but I think it's learning how to be happy again." Julian poured 2 mugs of cocoa. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was dying. He felt like he was waking up. Dr. Isabel Garcia tapped her pen nervously against the edge of Emery's medical chart. Julian Voss sat across from her in the hospital's modest conference room, visibly tense, his sharp suit a stark contrast to the faded institutional green walls. "She's stable," Dr. Garcia began, "but there are inconsistencies in her file. Scans, blood work, and notes from previous doctors. Something isn't adding up." Julian's brows furrowed. "What do you mean, inconsistencies?" "Some of the results suggest her condition might not be as terminal as we were led to believe," she said carefully. "But someone has marked later tests as duplicates and removed entire reports." He leaned forward. "Are you saying she might not be dying?" "I'm saying we need to run new tests, independent of her previous providers. With your permission, I'd like to start immediately." Julian hesitated only for a moment. "Do whatever it takes." Back at the Voss penthouse, Emery was asleep beneath a soft throw blanket on the oversized couch, clutching her stuffed fox. Julian stood with Harold Watkins in his study, handing him a thick folder of documents. "You want guardianship?" Harold asked, adjusting his glasses. "Julian, you were diagnosed with a fatal condition 3 weeks ago. A board challenge is already brewing. She needs someone, Harold," Julian interrupted. "And I need to do something meaningful with whatever time I have left." Harold sighed, flipping through the papers. "This isn't a dog adoption, Julian. Courts will ask questions, especially with your health, and you've only known her a week." Julian's voice softened. "She's not just a sick child, she's extraordinary." "I'll draft the papers," Harold relented. "But prepare for a fight." At Voss Technologies, Vivian Voss stared out her office's floor-to-ceiling windows, her platinum bob catching the morning light. A junior executive stood behind her nervously, a tablet clutched in his hands. "Julian's filed guardianship?" she asked without turning. "Yes, ma'am. The girl's name is Emery Wells. No prior foster family, it's raising questions." Vivian turned, her expression unreadable. "He's unraveling. First the diagnosis, now playing house with a terminal orphan." She crossed to her desk, fingers tapping against its marble top. "Schedule a meeting with the board, quietly. If he wants to burn his legacy on sentiment, we'll be ready to stop him." Later that day, Julian cancelled 3 meetings, had his assistant delay calls, and sat, cross-legged on the penthouse floor in a $5,000 suit, plastic teacup in hand. Emery adjusted a paper crown on her head and poured imaginary tea into his cup. "You're supposed to sip, Mr. Sirius." Julian chuckled and mimed sipping. "Delightful blend, Miss Wells." Emery studied him with her unnerving clarity. "You look different today, not sad like before." "Maybe I'm just not used to tea parties. Maybe you need more of them," she said, then leaned closer. "I used to have a friend named Lily at the hospital. She said grown-ups forget how to play when they're scared." Julian felt her words hit deeper than they should. Maybe she was right. At the Voss Technologies boardroom, Vivian stood at the head of the table as familiar faces filed in. Maxwell, Henders, Lynn, power players. "We all respect Julian," she began, "but recent actions suggest cognitive decline, guardianship of a terminal child, missed meetings, emotional instability." Maxwell shifted. "The numbers are still solid. For now," Vivian replied. "But how long before sentiment clouds strategy? The company can't be held hostage by grief." The board murmured in agreement, cautious but concerned. Vivian leaned in, voice cold. "It's time we prepare for transition." The sterile light of Dr. Garcia's clinic flickered against the walls as Julian sat across from her, arms crossed. Emery sat beside him, her small fingers clutching her worn, stuffed fox. "Tell me what you found," Julian said, voice low, guarded. Dr. Garcia took off her glasses and folded her hands. "Mr. Voss, Emery's new test results don't fully match the diagnosis in her chart. There are discrepancies. Her heart functions are better than expected. The degeneration markers are inconsistent with the disease noted. I believe her condition may have been exaggerated, possibly manipulated." Julian's brow furrowed. "You're telling me she might not be dying?" "I'm telling you the original diagnosis may have been fabricated," she said carefully. Emery looked up. "Does that mean I'm not going away soon?" Julian swallowed the lump rising in his throat. "We're going to find out, sweetheart. Whatever it takes." As Dr. Garcia left the room to consult with a colleague, Julian's eyes remained locked on the report. Someone had lied about Emery's condition, but why? Back at the Voss penthouse, Julian stood in his glass-walled study, staring at the city below. The quiet tick of the antique clock on the wall contrasted with the roar inside his head. He opened his laptop and pulled up the billing archives for Emery's treatments. As he traced the funding sources, a pattern emerged. Multiple invoices routed through an old foundation account, the Carter Foundation. "Carter, why does that sound familiar?" he murmured. He tapped deeper into the foundation's governance. The board chair, Vivian Voss. Julian leaned back in his chair, stunned. His sister had been funding Emery's treatment this entire time, anonymously, indirectly. But if she had known about Emery and lied, what else had she done? He picked up the phone. "Harold, I need you to dig into the Carter Foundation's connection to St. Clair's Hospital and do it quietly." Vivian's voice crackled through the intercom as she strode into Julian's penthouse the following evening. Uninvited as always, her presence instantly thickened the air. "I assume you've called me here for something ridiculous," she said, setting her designer bag on the table with a theatrical sigh. Julian didn't mince words. "Why is your foundation paying for Emery Wells' treatment?" Vivian blinked, then offered a cold smile. "We support dozens of pediatric causes. Why do you care?" "Because this one's different. This one involves forged records, a child falsely diagnosed as terminal, and you've been quietly paying to keep her in the hospital." Vivian's smile faded. "You're spiraling, Julian." He stepped forward, jaw clenched. "What aren't you telling me?" Her voice sharpened. "You think this obsession with a child you picked off a sidewalk makes you some kind of saint? You're dying, Julian. You should be getting your affairs in order, not playing house." Julian's stare was unblinking. "Then why are you so afraid of what I'll find?" Vivian grabbed her bag and stormed out. She didn't answer. Later that night, Miss Durant, the concierge, rang Julian's private line. There's a woman downstairs asking to see you. She says her name is Amanda Wells. Julian froze. The name clawed at a memory. A charity gala years ago. A woman with curious eyes, a brilliant mind, and a one-night encounter he'd buried like so many regrets. When Amanda stepped into the foyer, her posture was defensive, but her eyes determined. She held a photo, herself cradling a toddler with unmistakable green eyes. "She's mine," Amanda said. "Emery, and she was taken from me." Julian felt the floor shift. "Taken by who?" "By people connected to your sister," Amanda said. "They used my mental health against me, said I was unfit, but I was a research assistant. I knew something wasn't right. I tried to fight, and then she was gone." Julian swallowed hard. "You're telling me Vivian had a hand in this?" "I'm telling you," Amanda whispered. "You're Emery's father." Julian sat in stunned silence across from Amanda as the full weight of her words settled in. "I don't understand," he said finally. How can that be?" Amanda nodded slowly. "Harvard Gala, spring fundraiser, 7 years ago. Probably you don't remember me. You left before breakfast, but I never forgot." He searched her face, and the pieces began to fall into place. Emery's eyes, her intellect, her quiet strength. "My God," Julian breathed. "She's mine." Amanda nodded. "I didn't come for money or revenge. I just want my daughter safe. I want the truth out." From the hallway, a small voice called, "Mr. Voss?" Emery stood in her pajamas, sleepy-eyed and clutching her fox. Her gaze shifted between them. "Why are you both crying?" Julian knelt beside her, trembling. "I think we're all just realizing how important you are," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Amanda knelt on her other side. "We've both been waiting a long time for you." Emery looked between them. "Then maybe it's time we stop waiting." The three sat there side by side, in the quiet of a home that finally felt like one. Julian stood in the solarium, sunlight splintering through the tall glass panes. His hand trembled slightly. As he stared at the photo Amanda had given him, an old image of her holding a newborn, Emery, his daughter. Amanda stood near the window, her arms crossed not in anger, but in exhaustion. "I tried to tell you," she said softly, "but your sister made sure I couldn't." Julian turned, the weight of decades crashing in his chest. "You're saying she knew? Vivian knew Emery was mine?" Amanda nodded. "She orchestrated the entire thing. Took Emery from me under the guise of medical custody. I fought. I lost. I was declared unstable." Julian ran a hand through his hair, suddenly feeling every one of his 55 years. "And I never knew I had a child." "Now you do," Amanda said. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" He didn't answer at first. Instead, he looked toward the hallway, where faint laughter echoed. Emery, his daughter, the impossible truth. Later that day, Julian confronted his sister in her sleek office at Voss Technologies. Vivian sipped her espresso as if she'd been expecting him. "I assume you've spoken to Amanda." "You lied to me," Julian said quietly. "You altered medical records. You stole a child." Vivian's expression was unreadable. "I protected you and the company. You were spiraling after your diagnosis. I couldn't let sentiment derail what we've built. You used a dying child, my child, as leverage. She wasn't supposed to live, Julian. You were supposed to step down quietly. The company needed stability and you..." Her voice wavered for the first time. "You were dying." Julian stared at her. "And if Emery had died, would you have just moved on?" Vivian said nothing. Julian stepped closer. "She's my daughter, and I'm going to fight for her, whatever it costs." The next morning, Julian strode into the Voss Technologies boardroom, Amanda and Emery beside him. The marble table gleamed under harsh lights. Vivian was already seated, surrounded by loyalists. "Mr. Voss," Eleanor Harrow, a board member, began, "this is highly irregular." "Sit," Julian said. His voice held the power that once moved markets. He placed a manila folder on the table and opened it slowly. "The child you've all heard whispers about is my daughter, Emery Wells, or rather, Emery Parker Voss." Gasps echoed around the table. Amanda stepped forward. Vivian manipulated my medical records and Emery's to hide her identity, and tried to have me declared incompetent, Julian added, for personal gain. He held up a second folder. These are affidavits from hospital staff, financial records from the Carter Foundation, and communications tracing manipulation back to Vivian's office. Vivian stood. This is emotional grandstanding. It's evidence, Julian snapped. And I'm filing for legal guardianship of Emery. She is no longer a pawn in your schemes. The room fell into stunned silence. Amanda took Emery's hand. Julian stood taller than he had in weeks. That evening, the Voss penthouse transformed. Julian's art collection was replaced by whiteboards, medical charts, and evidence timelines. His sleek office became the command center for Project Butterfly, a name Emery had chosen herself. Amanda sat cross-legged on the couch with Emery, teaching her constellations from a book. Julian reviewed legal documents with Harold, who had flown in from DC. We're filing for full custody, Harold said. It'll be messy, especially with Vivian still holding influence. She has no soul, Julian muttered. But we have the truth. Dr. Garcia joined the call via secure video. Emery's condition is stabilizing. Her original diagnosis was manipulated to appear terminal. With proper treatment, she has a real shot. Julian closed his eyes, emotion threatening to escape. Thank you. I'll testify if it comes to that, Dr. Garcia said. Get ready, Julian replied. It will. That night, the family gathered on the terrace. Emery sat between Julian and Amanda, wrapped in a soft fleece blanket, sipping hot cocoa. You know I'm not going anywhere, right? Julian said, watching the city lights blink below them. Emery nodded. I know. Amanda's voice was quieter. There's still a lot to rebuild, Julian, between all of us. I don't want to rebuild what I had, he said. I want something new, with both of you. Emery looked up. Even if you're sick, I'm fighting, he said. Not just for me, for us. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of rain and something else. Hope. Amanda took Julian's hand. Then we fight together. As Emery leaned against them, her tiny heart still fragile but strong, the Voss family, newly formed and deeply scarred, looked ahead to the war still coming. But for the first time, they were ready. Julian Voss stood beside Emery's breakfast chair, cutting her waffles into stars when the elevator chimed. Ms. Reynolds opened the door to reveal Judge Harrington and Vivian Voss, both wearing smiles as cold as courtroom linoleum. Julian, Vivian said sweetly, I'm afraid this isn't a social visit. What is this? Julian's voice was calm, but his hand clenched the knife until his knuckles whitened. Judge Harrington cleared his throat. I'm here to serve an injunction on behalf of Ms. Voss. There are concerns about Ms. Wells's medical oversight and whether this household constitutes a safe environment for a critically ill child. Amanda entered the room from the hallway, her arms crossing instinctively over her chest. You can't be serious. Vivian's gaze narrowed. Amanda, your sudden reappearance has raised more questions than it's answered. As far as the court is concerned, your past instability and Julian's current health make this arrangement unsustainable. Emery, sensing tension, dropped her fork. Julian stepped forward. This is my home, my daughter. You'll need more than a falsified petition to take her. Judge Harrington looked momentarily uneasy. This matter will be decided in court, Mr. Voss. Then we'll see you there, Julian replied evenly, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Harold Watkins arrived within the hour, the injunction still fresh in his hands. It's thin, Julian. Allegations, not facts. But they've gotten a judge to sign off. That means Vivian's influence runs deeper than we thought. Amanda paced the room. She's weaponizing our history, mine, yours, even Emery's illness. This isn't about concern, it's control. I'm not going to let her win, Julian said quietly, watching Emery draw galaxies on the patio windows with washable markers. No matter what it costs. Ms. Reynolds stepped in with her tablet. You'll want to see this. She tapped play. A security video from St. Clair's showed Vivian cornering a young nurse in the corridor, a stack of bills discreetly changing hands. Julian raised his eyebrows. Time-stamped? Logged? Harold smiled thinly. We may just have what we need. Amanda joined Julian by the window. We need to hit back, but on our terms, publicly, ethically. He nodded. Then let's shine a light on everything she's tried to keep buried. Dr. Garcia sat at the long marble dining table, her laptop open and eyes focused. She approached my assistant, she said plainly. 50,000 for updated files on Emery. When we refused, she offered double. Julian rubbed his temples. How many others? 5 that I know of, possibly more. I've started collecting written statements, all anonymous, unless we go to court. Amanda added, she's building a narrative that we're reckless, that you're unstable. We need to dismantle that before it cements. Julian exhaled. Then we make our move, not just legal, but legacy. He turned to Harold. Draft a press release. We're going to reshape the Carter Foundation into something that actually helps people, and we'll let the world see the difference. Dr. Garcia nodded. Truth always leaves a trail. Let's follow it. 3 days later, Julian stood before a press corps gathered in front of the soon-to-be Carter Family Medical Center. Amanda stood. Beside him, her hand resting protectively on Emery's shoulder, Julian took the podium. Today, we're announcing a new direction, one built on transparency, research integrity, and patient-first care. The Carter Family Medical Center will not be run by inheritance or politics, but by purpose. Reporters clamored with questions, many aiming for personal jabs. Mr. Voss, what about the custody allegations? Julian remained composed. My daughter deserves care, not court battles. What matters isn't speculation, it's what's true. And the truth is this, she's safe, she's thriving, and she is loved. Emery's small voice echoed behind him. And I get to paint the kid's wing. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Amanda whispered, that line may have saved us more than a year of PR. Julian smiled. She's already better at this than I am. The Voss Technologies boardroom was a coliseum of power, its glass walls gleaming with indifference. Vivian entered with practiced poise, head held high. Before we begin, Julian said, rising from his seat, there's a final matter. Motion to remove Vivian Voss from all corporate leadership roles effective immediately. Vivian's mask cracked. This is absurd. Harold stepped forward with a leather-bound dossier. Documentation of falsified medical records, judicial coercion, and internal sabotage, all tied to Ms. Voss. The board fell into murmured debate. CFO Alan Craig cleared his throat. Vivian, is any of this true? Vivian didn't respond. She turned her gaze to Julian. You've always seen family as an obstacle. I was trying to protect our legacy. No, Julian replied. You were trying to steal it. The vote was unanimous. Vivian stood silently, her chair scraping the polished floor. As security escorted her out, Julian looked to Amanda and Emery, who had waited just outside the door. It's done, he whispered. Amanda nodded. Now the real healing begins. Julian exhaled, the tension of 1,000 tomorrows finally giving way to a single, powerful today. The courtroom was quiet, but Julian could hear his heartbeat in his ears. Emery sat beside him, her small hand tightly gripping his. Across the table, Amanda's eyes shone with a blend of pride and restraint. Judge Patel, a stern but fair woman, looked over her glasses and smiled gently. Is it your intention, Mr. Voss, to adopt Emery Wells as your legal daughter? Julian nodded. Yes, wholeheartedly. And, Ms. Wells, do you consent to this adoption? Amanda looked to her daughter, who nodded solemnly. I do, Amanda said. Judge Patel turned to Emery. And what about you, young lady? Are you ready to be a Voss? Emery tilted her head. Can I still be Emery Parker Voss? I want to keep my mum's name too. Laughter rippled gently through the courtroom. I think that can be arranged, the judge said. As she signed the final document and handed it to the bailiff, Julian felt something loosen in his chest, an ache he'd carried for decades, lifting with the ink drying on. That paper, Emery, his daughter, was now his family in every sense of the word. The ribbon fluttered in the ocean breeze outside the Carter Family Medical Center. Press cameras flashed, dignitaries applauded, and Julian stood with Amanda and Emery in front of the sleek glass facade that now bore his family's name. Emery stepped up to the microphone, her legs steady. Her voice trembled at first, then grew stronger. "My name is Emery Parker Voss," she began. "A year ago, I lived in a hospital. Now I live in a home. This place is for kids like I used to be. People who deserve hope, not fear." Tears filled Amanda's eyes. Julian stood beside his daughter, his hand on her shoulder. Vivian Voss watched from the crowd, arms folded, expression unreadable. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Her silence was the surrender. Inside, the center pulsed with life. Doctors in bright scrubs, research labs bustling with ethical vigor, and walls painted with vibrant murals Emery had helped design. Julian walked through the corridors slowly, taking it all in. This was the legacy he never planned for, but had always needed. Weeks passed. The air grew warmer, and laughter echoed through the once quiet penthouse. Emery was thriving, attending school, playing music, scribbling math puzzles with a focus that reminded Julian of himself. Julian's health had stabilized. The experimental treatment Dr. Garcia had insisted on, controversial, precise, and shockingly effective, was working. His prognosis had extended. He might not have decades, but he had years, real years. One evening, Julian entered the terrace to find Amanda reviewing medical protocols, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I've been thinking," he said, setting down 2 glasses of wine, "about the future, not just for the center or Voss Technologies, but ours." Amanda looked up, sensing the shift in his voice. "Julian, I know it's early, but I can't imagine walking forward without you beside me, and not just as co-parents or partners in medicine. I mean something more." She hesitated, the wine glass trembling slightly in her hand. "You're not the man I met 10 years ago at a gala." "Neither are you," he replied. "We've both been tempered, tested, and we're still here." Later that week, Julian called Emery into his study. She found him kneeling beside a velvet box. "I need your help, strategist," he said. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a platinum ring etched with a Fibonacci spiral, her favorite mathematical sequence. "I designed it with your mom in mind, but I need your approval." Emery grinned. "Is this where I say, 'Go get her, Dad'?" Something like that. That night, Julian invited Amanda to the rooftop garden, newly renovated with string lights and soft jazz humming from hidden speakers. He knelt, held out the ring, and waited. "I'm not asking because of obligation. I'm asking because of love." Amanda looked from Julian to Emery, who stood watching from a distance, arms crossed proudly. "Yes," she whispered, "to love, to second chances, and to the family we've built." They embraced as the lights of Manhattan glowed like stars around them. Somewhere behind them, Emery let out a theatrical cheer. 6 months later, on a quiet morning, the Voss family sat on the penthouse balcony overlooking the city. Emery chattered about her science fair win. Amanda sipped coffee while reviewing new pediatric proposals, and Julian read aloud from the journal he had begun the day he met Emery. "This was meant to be a goodbye," he said, closing it gently, "but it became a beginning." Amanda reached for his hand. "We're not promised forever, but we've been given more time than we thought. And we're not wasting a second of it," Emery added, her wide green eyes gleaming. Julian looked around at the daughter who brought his heart back to life, the woman who helped him reclaim it, and the home no longer filled with silence. A man once sentenced to 3 months now faced 1,000 tomorrows. And, for the first time in his life, Julian Voss was truly alive. What if the child you thought you saved was your own flesh and blood? And what if the sickness that brought you together was never real? In a world of wealth, betrayal, and buried secrets, one man's countdown to death became a race to protect the future he never knew he had. 3 months and 1,000 tomorrows is more than a story of redemption. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the truth we've been running from holds the key to the family we've always needed. So now we ask you, what would you risk to rewrite your legacy in the time you have left? Let us know in the comments. Your thoughts might inspire someone else to look at their own story differently. And if this story moved you, if you believe in the power of love, truth, and second chances, then be sure to subscribe to our channel. We bring you more emotional stories like this, filled with twists, heart, and meaning. Don't forget to turn on the notifications so you never miss a tale that could change how you see the world.